The sound of waves crashing, the gentle laughter of tourists, the smell of grilled seafood drifting from beachside cafes. Praia da Luz, Portugal, was everything a family could dream of when planning a peaceful holiday. But on the evening of May 3, 2007, in one of the apartments at the Ocean Club Resort, a nightmare unfolded. A 3-year-old girl named Madeleine McCann was tucked into bed with her favorite toy by her side. Her younger twin siblings slept beside her. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, were dining just a minute's walk away with friends. But when Kate returned to check on the children around 10 p.m., Madeleine was gone. No screams, no sound, no broken locks, just an open window, a breeze, and an empty bed. That moment became the beginning of one of the most mysterious missing child cases in modern history. What followed was a worldwide manhunt, a divided investigation, suspicion, blame, false leads, and an enduring question: where is Madeleine McCann? Kate and Jerry McCann were both respected medical professionals from the United Kingdom. Kate was a general practitioner, Jerry a cardiologist. They lived in Rothley, Leicestershire, and were the proud parents of 3 children, Madeleine and the twins, Sean and Amelie. In late April 2007, they traveled to Portugal with a group of close friends and their children for a week-long holiday. The group stayed in the Ocean Club Resort, a family-friendly complex in the small town of Praia da Luz, located on the Algarve coast. The McCann's apartment was number 5. It had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living area. The children slept in the front room, which had a window facing the street. The apartment was on the ground floor, just steps away from the pool and tapas restaurant where the adults dined each night. Their vacation had a rhythm. During the day, the kids went to the resort's child care program or played by the pool. In the evening, the parents would put the kids to bed and head to the tapas bar within the resort grounds. The group developed a rotation system. One adult would check on the children every 20 to 30 minutes. It was routine. It felt safe. Praia da Luz wasn't known for crime. The Ocean Club staff were friendly. Other families did the same thing. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until it was. On the evening of May 3rd, around 8:30 p.m., the McCann children were put to bed. Madeleine was in a short, sleeved pink and white Eeyore pajama set. The twins, just 2 years old, were already asleep in their cots. Kate and Jerry joined their friends at the tapas bar around 8:35 p.m. The restaurant was roughly 50 meters from their apartment, close enough to see the corner of the building. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry went to check on the children. Everything looked fine. He later said the door to the children's bedroom was slightly ajar, which seemed odd. He pulled it closed before heading back to dinner. At 9:30 p.m., a friend named Matthew Oldfield offered to check on the McCann kids while checking on his own. He noticed the bedroom door was open again, but he didn't step inside. He listened, heard no noise, assumed the children were still asleep. Then at 10:00 p.m., Kate McCann went to check. When she entered apartment 5A, the bedroom door slammed shut, as if pushed by a draft. The window was open. The shutter was raised. Madeleine's bed was empty. At first, Kate thought she had wandered off. But when she searched every corner of the apartment, panic took over. She ran back to the restaurant, yelling, "They've taken her! Madeleine's gone!" From that moment on, nothing was ever the same. The alarm was raised immediately. Resort staff, other guests, and Kate and Jerry's friends fanned out across the grounds and surrounding streets. People shouted Madeleine's name, searched nearby beaches, and looked in every alley. But there was no trace of her. The Portuguese police, known as the Polícia Judiciária, were contacted. But from the very beginning, their handling of the case raised serious concerns. Police didn't arrive at the apartment until 10:40 p.m., nearly 40 minutes after the initial call. The scene had already been contaminated. Dozens of people had walked in and out of the apartment. The window and shutters had been touched. There was no proper sealing of the scene. Vital evidence may have been lost forever. Officers initially treated the case as a simple missing child. They believed Madeleine had wandered off. Only later did they consider the possibility of an abduction. That first night, there was no roadblock, no border alert, no suspect description. The investigation started late, and the clock was already ticking. By the next morning, the story was already spreading across Portugal. British holidaymakers called friends and family back home. The UK media picked up the story. Newspapers printed photos of Madeleine. Blonde hair, big blue-green eyes, and a slight coloboma, unique mark in her right eye. It was a detail that would make her instantly recognizable. As the hours passed with no sign of Madeleine, panic turned into desperation. Kate and Jerry made public appeals. They stood before cameras and begged for help. Flyers with Madeleine's photo were printed in multiple languages. British celebrities began tweeting. Even David Beckham and J.K. Rowling joined the effort. Soon, what began as a local disappearance became an international story. News vans flooded Praia da Luz. Journalists camped outside the Ocean Club. TV crews flew in from the UK, Germany, and Spain. Within 72 hours, the case was everywhere. But behind the scenes, chaos ruled the investigation. The Portuguese police were overwhelmed. They weren't used to international pressure or this kind of intense media attention. Clashing cultures between the UK and Portuguese authorities made matters worse. The British press criticized the local police, and tensions rose quickly. And despite hundreds of tips, searches, and interviews, there was still no trace of Madeleine. In the weeks following Madeleine's disappearance, hundreds of tips came in. People claimed to see a little blonde girl in airports, train stations, and shopping centers all across Europe. One of the most talked about leads came from a tourist who said she saw a man carrying a child in pajamas away from the apartment complex that night around 9:15 p.m. The child was barefoot, and the man didn't look like a parent. This became known as the Smith sighting. But there was a problem. The tourist reported it several days later, and by that time, memories were already fading. Sketches were made. Police began searching for a man with short brown hair, wearing beige pants and a dark jacket. Another sighting came from Morocco. A woman claimed she saw Madeleine with a strange couple at a petrol station. Investigators flew out to check, but the child turned out to be someone else. As each tip collapsed, the frustration grew, and then came the twist no one expected. In early September 2007, 4 months after Madeleine went missing, Portuguese police shifted their theory. They no longer believed Madeleine had been abducted by a stranger. They now believed that her parents, Kate and Jerry, were involved, either directly or by accident. According to police, there were inconsistencies in their stories. Sniffer dogs brought in from the UK allegedly picked up the scent of blood and the smell of human remains in the McCann's rental car, which they had rented weeks after Madeleine vanished. This, police argued, meant that Madeleine may have died in the apartment and that her parents had covered it up. On September 7, 2007, both Kate and Jerry were declared orgados, formal suspects under Portuguese law. The news exploded like wildfire. Overnight, the public narrative flipped. Were the grieving parents really hiding something? Were they putting on a show? The McCanns denied everything. They claimed the police were trying to pin the case on them because they had no real suspect. They hired their own lawyers, their own PR team, and began appearing in media interviews to defend themselves. A war began, not just in the investigation, but in the court of public opinion. Some people believed the McCanns were innocent parents trapped in a nightmare. Others believed they were hiding a dark secret. But there was one big problem for the police: no evidence. No body, no witness, no confession, no forensic proof. And in July 2008, nearly a year after Madeleine disappeared, Portuguese authorities closed the case due to lack of evidence. The McCanns were no longer suspects. But Madeleine was still missing. Even though the official case was shelved, the McCanns didn't stop. They were determined to find their daughter. They launched the Find Madeleine Fund to raise money for private investigators. Donations poured in, from celebrities, politicians, and ordinary people. The fund raised millions. Kate and Jerry hired former police officers, detectives, and even ex-MI5 agents to look into the case independently. Over the years, multiple private firms took on the investigation. Some claimed they had solid leads. Some uncovered new tips. Others were accused of wasting time and money. The McCanns also published age progression photos of Madeleine, what she might look like at 5, 7, 9, and later 13 years old. They refused to give up hope. Every year, on Madeleine's birthday and on the anniversary of her disappearance, Kate and Jerry would make new statements. They appeared on talk shows, wrote articles, pleaded with the public. But the mystery only grew deeper. In 2011, the British government stepped in. Prime Minister David Cameron ordered Scotland Yard to open a new investigation into the case. This became known as Operation Grange. Scotland Yard detectives reviewed thousands of documents from the original Portuguese case, re-interviewed witnesses, and reanalyzed leads that had been ignored. They created new timelines, new suspect lists, even new maps. In 2013, they released 2 new fits of potential suspects. They believed that the original timelines were wrong, and that the man seen carrying a child could be the key to the case. In total, Operation Grange cost over $13 million and spanned over a decade. Several new suspects were investigated. Phone records were re-examined. But again, there was no breakthrough. And then in June 2020, a major announcement came from Germany. German prosecutors announced that they had a new prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. His name, Christian Bruckner, a 43-year-old German man with a long criminal record, including child abuse and rape. At the time of Madeleine's disappearance, he had been living in a camper van near Praia da Luz. Phone records placed him in the area around the time Madeleine vanished. He even received a phone call that pinged near the McCann apartment just 1 hour before she was reported missing. Bruckner was already serving a prison sentence for unrelated crimes, including the rape of a 72-year-old woman, which he had committed in Portugal, not far from Praia da Luz. German police said they had concrete evidence that Madeleine was dead and that Bruckner was responsible. But they didn't charge him. They didn't reveal the evidence. They said the case was ongoing. As of today, Christian Bruckner remains under investigation. He has not confessed. He denies any involvement, and Madeleine's whereabouts remain unknown. As the years rolled on, the world didn't forget Madeleine McCann, but it changed the way it looked at the case. In 2011, Kate McCann published a book titled Madeleine. In it, she described the agony of losing a child, the frustration with the police, the media circus, and the constant battle to protect their family's name. The book became a bestseller, and the proceeds went into the Find Madeleine Fund. Kate spoke publicly about the crushing guilt she felt. Not only as a mother who lost her child, but as a woman who had been accused of harming her. The couple faced not only grief, but a level of public scrutiny that few families could survive. In interviews, she said, "There is no textbook for what happens when your child is taken. We've done our best with the worst situation imaginable." The media's role became a subject of debate. For years, tabloids had made wild accusations, running stories suggesting that the McCanns sedated their kids, that they partied too much, that they faked an abduction. The couple fought back, filing lawsuits against publications and winning some major defamation claims. Yet even with the victories in court, the wounds ran deep. They were no longer just grieving parents. They were public figures in a global mystery, one that had become a symbol of both hope and suspicion. Still, Kate and Jerry remained focused on one thing: finding Madeleine. The case of Madeleine McCann didn't just make headlines. It became part of culture. Documentaries were released. Books were written. Podcasts dissected every timeline, every theory, every mistake. In 2019, Netflix released an 8-part series titled The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, exploring the global obsession and multiple theories behind the case. To some, Madeleine's case exposed how the media treats missing white children differently than others, with more coverage, more outrage, and more pressure on authorities. To others, it became a reminder of how fallible investigations can be, how deeply the public craves resolution, and how easy it is to turn victims into suspects. The phrase, "the Madeleine McCann case," became shorthand for media frenzy, flawed justice, and the terrifying reality that a child could vanish, even from the safest places. Today, as of this recording, Madeleine McCann is still missing. The investigation into Christian Bruckner remains ongoing. In 2022, Portuguese authorities formally named him an official suspect. The first time they had done so in over a decade. German prosecutors have stated they believe Madeleine is dead, but they have yet to charge anyone. No body has been found. No final clue has closed the case. Kate and Jerry McCann continue to search for answers. In a statement on what would have been Madeleine's 18th birthday, they wrote, "We hang on to the hope, however small, that we will see Madeleine again. We need to know what happened to our daughter, no matter the outcome. Justice still matters." The Find Madeleine website is still live. Donations still come in, and people around the world continue to send tips and messages of support. Every so often, a false alarm hits the headlines. A girl spotted in another country who looks like Madeleine. A new psychic vision, a viral conspiracy theory. But none have led to answers. The official investigation in the UK, Operation Grange, is still active, though scaled down. Officers say they will continue until there is nothing left to follow. The story of Madeleine McCann is, at its heart, a tragedy. A 3-year-old girl went to sleep one night in a holiday apartment and was never seen again. Her parents woke up to a living nightmare. The world rushed to help, and then, over time, began to turn on the very people who cried for help. For many, Madeleine represents every parent's worst fear. The idea that no matter how safe we try to be, the unthinkable can happen in a single moment. It also reveals how fragile trust in the system can be. How cultural differences, miscommunication, and media distortion can twist an already difficult case into something even darker. And then there is the heartbreak of not knowing. The kind that doesn't fade with time. The kind that lingers every time you see a blonde, haired child in the street, or hear a news report about a found body. Kate and Jerry McCann once said, "While there is no evidence Madeleine has come to serious harm, we will not give up. Our family is still missing a daughter. Our twins are still missing their sister, and we are still missing a piece of our hearts. The world may never know what really happened on May 3rd, 2007. But the question still haunts the hearts of millions. If you have any information, even if you think it's small, authorities still ask that you come forward. Tips can be submitted through official police channels or through the Find Madeleine website. This case is still open, and until the truth is known, there is still hope. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more deep true crime stories like this one. And always remember, stay aware, stay